Your weekend is not complete without the First Lady of New York Radio. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Joan Hamburg. And, you know, I've been doing radio for a long time, in my youth. But longer is the one and only Curtis Sliwa. And no matter where I go, and if you're in our business, you would have had that experience. People will ask me, tell me what blank is really like. I get more asks about Curtis than almost everyone I know. What's he really like? Does he really work at all these jobs all the time? Is he really down in the subway? Is he really worried about public safety? Is he going to run for office again? What's he like? Curtis is so many things, and so many things to so many people. And he does represent the best of what we have in our business. And he does it all. And the thing about Curtis, he never seems tired, which is amazing. So I thought it would be fun for you to get to know him in a different way. Now, you can't miss him on the air because he's on the air. I'm going to let him tell you. I can't remember that many times. I'm glad you stopped in. You can take a little breather from all your activities. But you are on the air all the time. I first met you when you were doing broadcasts for another station. And then, you know.
Well, that's true. I've been on the air now 35 years, most of it at WABC. And when I was first getting into the business, they said, you got to follow in the footsteps of Joan Hamburg. She's got a black book of sponsors and advertisers that goes 9 miles long. And you did. When we met, you actually shared with me. You showed me your book and all the people who had sponsored your radio programs over the years and advertisers, all of whom had only good things to say about you. And so when I would call them up trying to get a lead, they'd say, Joan Hamburg, kid, you got to wait a few years. So there was no doubt you, when it came to that, pioneered in this. And everyone else in commercial radio didn't seem to understand, Joan, that's why they call it commercial radio. Right. Because if there are no commercials, there's no free radio.
I know, but you, Curtis, got that right away. A lot of people we know in this business thought, what's that? I'm not going to get bothered with all that, a pain in the neck. But we knew. Now, when I was a kid in this business, I wrote copy for an ad agency, BBD&O, for a lot of clients. And I learned that way what it takes. And you got it right away.
Well, I used to listen overnights to WMCA when it was the big talk radio station.
Right, Long John Neville and all those guys.
Long John Neville had me believing that his partner, Candy Jones, was a CIA agent.
I believe that, too.
That you could dig a hole from Bayonne, New Jersey, to back then we called it Peking, China. And he was the most magnificent seller of services and products that I had ever heard. And so I said to myself, there obviously is a link here. He's a great broadcaster. He's great theater of the mind. But it's obvious without the advertising, he would not be on the radio. And so I learned as a listener, so that when I had the opportunity to actually broadcast, I completely understood. In the beginning, I'm probably not going to be that good. It takes a lot of time to marinate and get seasoned. But boy, if I could get some advertising, that may just hold me on the dial long enough so that I can get some longevity.
That was true. And in those days, Barry Gray was on the radio a lot. And it was Barry Gray that said that to me. He said, you can be good as anyone on the radio, charming, funny, whatever. You're not going to do anything unless you understand it's about advertising. When you get that, you'll start to get your own market.
And even Cousin Brucey explained to me when he was at the height of his fame as the number one DJ of all time at WABC. He said right after, during the day, I'd be calling up the CEO of Macy's and say, hey, can I come over for lunch? Because I needed to get their business. I said, well, why? He says, because you have the microphone one day, and just as quickly they could take the microphone from you the next day. And he said this was insurance. If I had big advertisers who had signed on, even if they were wavering on me, they'd say, yeah, but the advertisers love them. We got to stick with Cousin Brucey.
That's true. And it's because of all that I almost lost the job in radio. You have to be so careful. I was doing a commercial trying to sell radio time. And the commercial was, you can have your ads in our magazine in 4-color with editorial usage of it. I never forgot that, for the mere price of $7,000 or $8,000. So that was just to, do the commercial.
Yeah.
So I have the worst handwriting in the whole world. A lefty turned to righty, so no one could read my writing, including me. So I'm doing this commercial, couldn't read my writing, and instead of you can have your ads in our magazine, I misspelled it and wrote, you can have your ASS in our magazine in 4-color with editorial usage of it. They didn't like it. Mm-hmm. So they fired me for that. So as I went out the door, the program director, I think Cliff Barrett, I don't remember in those days anymore, came back and said, you cannot read. You can't do these commercials. Can you write better than that? I said, yeah. Am I still fired? He said, no, come back in and you'll do the other thing. And that's how I really started on the air and broadcasting.
Yeah, but Joan, with your handwriting, because they had shown you the curve, the door, you could have become a doctor and wrote prescriptions.
You're right.
Because I've never been able to decipher what is on the prescription pen.
I know. But most of them, if you talk to doctor friends, they're lefties, that were converted over. So no one can read it. And then all my kids are lefties, too. You can't read a thing they write.
Now, remember, we had the threesome in a row. Bill Clinton, Bush 43, and Barack Obama. All lefties, all had daughters.
That's funny. And the daughters,
all lefties, all had daughters.
Yeah, and the daughters were really lefties.
Yep.
So when you started, and I was trying to remember, because people were talking about you, what did you really want to do? Did you see yourself as an elected official, or did you see yourself as a radio star?
No, I saw myself as neither, because it was very difficult starting in radio, because I started at WABC. I didn't have to go out.
Right, you were there.
Into Leave It to Beaverland, a 2-watt station in the middle of a cornfield, and earn my way.
Which is what we tell all the kids who say to us, how am I going to get a job?
But I knew right away. I was doing morning radio with Lisa, my wife at the time. It was Angels in the Morning.
Yeah.
And I knew right away why WABC never had a good morning program when they were doing talk. The general manager called us in and said, look, don't do anything to embarrass us, because I listen to Imus every morning. The program director called us in and said, don't do anything to embarrass us, because I listen to Howard Stern in the morning. So right away I looked at Lisa. She looked at me. I said, no wonder why they've never had a good morning talk show here at Morning Drive. They don't even listen to their product. And we were able to sort of take advantage of an old concept, a husband and a wife, the bickering Dickinsons, or whatever they used to call it. And then all of a sudden, a guy named Hinckley, who wrote the radio column for the Daily News,
everyone read that.
Right, but they were ready to fire us. And he goes, oh, talk radio has rediscovered old-fashioned radio, the battling Bickersons in the morning, Angels in the morning, and all the ABC suits uptown called the local. Say, oh, I see you finally have a morning show. Mm. And so they looked at one another. Well, we can't can them now. Everybody loves them uptown. And that's what saved us, really. It was Hinckley for the Daily News writing that piece that we had no idea he was going to whip up and get printed.
And then it went on from there. You never looked back after that point.
No, never looked back. But then again, learned you're only as good as your last show.
That's
you're
true.
only as good as your last ratings book. You could be a hero in one period, and then all of a sudden you're on a one-way trip to Palookaville the next. It's a bruising business, and you have to make sure that every day, I've always said, 2 hours of preparation for every 1 hour on the radio. And the younger talk show hosts and hostesses look at me like,
I know,
what?
crazy. They don't get it.
But you have to, because your next show has to be better than your last show. And you always have to understand, you don't own this microphone. They lend it to you before the show. And when you leave, you may come back the next day and you don't have the microphone. It is not your microphone. It is not your show. They lend it to you each and every day.
So do you think the reason that you've survived and thrived and even have bigger dreams, which look very possible, that it's because of that, it's because of your understanding that you've got to over-prepare to do what you do? You can't just get out there and say, hey, look at me, you know, I walk around doing this and that.
Joan Hamburg, I have survived in radio based on my experiences in marriage, having been married 5 times.
As my grandma would say, Kanahara.
Right, but if I could survive that, I could survive anything.
You know what? That's the truth. That should be your book.
That's right. Although this one, Nancy is the keeper. She loves animals, dogs, cats, all kinds of animals. And she actually tolerates all of my, we'll call it idiosyncrasies. My idiosyncrasies.
But she likes that. And she finds it funny. And that's the good part.
Right, but Joan, you know what it's like. If you're doing well, it's called an idiosyncrasy. You're eccentric.
Right.
If you're not doing well, you're crazy. You're a nut job. Same thing like with wealth. If you're doing very well, but you're a cheapskate, you're very frugal. See, that's how you acquired your wealth. In the streets, if you're a cheapskate, you're a cheapskate.
Right. They don't like it.
Exactly.
They don't like it. But you still, even now, is very successful on the air. You were telling me earlier, you've got to hear how many times a day you can hear Curtis on the air.
Oh, yeah. Well, I start off the day because I know everyone listens to Morning Drive. So I'm on with Sid Rosenberg for one segment Monday through Friday, 7:15. And I bring my A-plus game because that's the bulk of the audience.
Right, they're going to go with you.
Then at lunchtime, 12 noon to 1, it's the Rip and Read, where I break news. Sometimes I have my wife, Nancy, who's an e-attorney, who's done a deep dive, and people are like, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Because naturally, people have a tendency to repeat themselves. I'm on with Dominic Carter at the end for the Tunnel to Towers update. I break more news there. And then on the weekends, morning, noon, and night, it's always broadcasting Curtis. So about a good 25 hours a week of Curtis Sliwa on WABC.
That's a lot, and it works. So if they said to you, okay, you're very successful, you're doing this, you're doing that, what do you really want to do? We're going to make you president. You can do anything you want to do on the air.
Well, in radio, I love theater of the mind when I do overnight radios, Saturday morning from 12 to 6, and then Sunday morning 12 to 6. Because then you're not talking politics, current events. It's all theater of the mind. It's all entertainment. You're conflating music, history, movies, culture. People can't get enough of that because if they happen to be Democrats, Republicans, or they're apolitical, they don't mind. It's when it's hardcore politics that you're going to turn a certain segment of the population away. And let's face it, nobody wants to hear politics late at night, or especially on the weekends. They want to be able to disconnect because they know the moment they got to go back to work or take care of whatever their business is on Monday, it's back to the grind.
That's for sure.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
And what about safety? Is that a big issue these days?
Unfortunately, safety is. When I first started the group in 1979, it was the priority. The city was falling into the abyss. We made a tremendous comeback under Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg, 20 years of safety. And then now with de Blasio and Eric Adams, we're almost back to where we were. And it's this way all over the country. I have guardian angel groups all over the country, all over the world, in 13 countries and 130 cities. And in almost every one of them, they all improved, and now they're all in decline.
So what's it going to take to get some semblance back of what we had? And people feeling secure. They don't feel secure.
Yeah, and you can't have a mayor who all of a sudden says, look at the analytics. Crime is down. No. When you ride the subways, you're in the parks, you're in the streets. You may not be a victim of crime, but your quality of life, you just feel so soiled that you have to take a hot shower. If you make it into your apartment or your place of business without being accosted yourself. So the best way to straighten it up, elect Curtis Sliwa mayor. I mean, nobody knows this city better than me. And by the way, Eric Adams, he had his shot. And I can't think of one thing that's memorable with him. With Bill de Blasio, at least he had pre-K. Everybody said, oh, yeah, pre-K.
Well,
that was the only thing. With Eric Adams, you say, what has he actually done other than say things and never follow through? I call him the swagger man with no plan. Now, to some of your listeners, he's great for nightlife. He's a great nightlife mayor to the break of dawn.
That's right. He's at a party. He's here and there. He's the mayor who loves to be on the A-list.
And let's see, who was the last mayor over 100 years ago? Bob Hope played him. One of the great acting parts of Bob Hope. Jimmy Walker.
Oh, my God.
Who had 50 customized suits, was out there during Prohibition with the flapper girls at the speakeasies until the break of dawn, and was so corrupt he had to leave by ocean liner or be indicted. He came back 10 years later, and Joan, he became a talk radio show host.
He had plenty of experience.
This life after elected office as a talk radio show host or hostess.
That's right, but elected office, you're already so connected. Is that a possibility in your future?
Yes, because I'm very connected with the streets of New York City.
Right.
Even my critics acknowledge nobody knows the streets and subways better than Curtis Sliwa. But oftentimes, it's the heavy hitters, the whales on Wall Street, who make the determinations.
Well, they got the money to back it.
Yeah, but they got to understand, they're not going to be around if we don't make it safe in the subways or the streets, because all the other states are calling them, giving them sweetheart deals. Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. They're picking up and they're leaving. The exodus continues every day. I believe improve, don't move. Fight for what you know is right.
So what is it going to take to really make it work? How do you fight for it? I mean, people say, I want to make a difference. How?
Well, the way you make a difference is clearly, and I gotta be I have to bring a little doom and gloom in here. It's got to get worse before it gets better. But you got to get these elected officials out who have been there in perpetuity. Too many of them have been there too long. That they are insulated from what the reality of working class people are. And so you have to you got to get people elected. I don't care what their party affiliation, who are connected to the average everyday people, middle class people who pay the taxes, who do the work, because they're the ones fleeing. The wealthy will always have their second apartment here in New York City. The poor ain't going nowhere, but they're a burden on the social network system, and it's the middle class who has always subsidized that. If they continue to leave, the city will sink into the abyss.
And there's no place for them to live, even. So we have...
Well, now that's a debatable thing.
Yeah, what are you looking at?
Let me take you back, Joan. You and I are veterans. 1960, there were 8.1 million people in this city. Today, there are 8.2 million people, and there have been 750,000 more apartments built since then. We didn't have that problem in 1960.
No.
You never heard of that. There's plenty of apartments. But people are warehousing apartments because they can't get market rates. So they don't put them out on the market. Hundreds of thousands of apartments that could be rented or leased or maybe turned into co-ops and condos are just being put on the shelf because an investor can't get any return on their dollars. We're becoming more of a socialist city. And socialism never worked. Communism certainly never worked. So why would we want to travel the same trail again only to realize that we had 8.1 million people in 1960 and we didn't have a shortage of apartments?
No.
We have 750,000 more apartments since then. How is it we have a shortage of apartments now? Nobody ever asked that question. Follow the analytics. That tells you everything.
Do you feel safe here? Does your family?
No, my family doesn't feel safe at all because women are the ones who are most vulnerable. It's guys who do all the talking, but it's women who are constantly being approached by the pervs, the emotionally disturbed, the homeless. They are the majority of the workers. Without women going to nightclubs, restaurants, and bars, the men will not follow.
Right.
If you don't make it safe for women, who now, in most households, are not only the workers, but they control the finances, then this city is doomed. You got to take care of the women because they do all the heavy lifting. They do the majority of the spending now. And most importantly, most guys are not going to want to go to nightclubs, bars, or restaurants unless they know that women are there that they can socialize with and meet.
And are you finding that women are going out or doing their thing, or are they holding back?
They can't. An average woman, let's say she's divorced or separated and she's trying to re-engage. I mean, how many times can you pay for a cab? How many times can you pay for a car service to take you to a... They won't take the subways. They won't take the buses. And to be honest with you, I cannot blame them.
I was going to say, are they wrong or...
No,
it's
they're absolutely correct. The thugs, the thugettes, and the pervs out there know that they can prey on women and nothing will happen. Joan, in your entire life, my entire life, there were 50 women punched in the face in Lower Manhattan in just 1 month alone. 50! And very few, if any, people were arrested and charged with those crimes. So you say to yourself, women are very astute. They're very smart. They're saying, oh, notice they're punching the women. They're taking advantage of women. I'm not going to be one of those statistics. I'm staying away from the city.
And we find that more and more. I hear that even among my acquaintances and friends of all ages. They still talk about moving out, even when the kids are past the school age, like enough already.
Well, you know, if mortgages weren't so high, more would flee. It's 7% now. The other thing is, remember Wednesdays, women predominantly would come in for the matinees.
Right.
Then they'd have a little bit of lunch or brunch. And then they might hang around, shop a little bit, maybe even go to two plays or two musicals, off-Broadway, Broadway. Now they don't even come in. Broadway's hurting. Off-Broadway's hurting. The restaurants are hurting. Why? Because we got homeless everywhere, emotionally disturbed. We got all those migrants. Remember in the old Milford Plaza Hotel?
Yeah.
All of America would live all year to come to the Milford Plaza for 1 week. And there they would see all the plays and the musicals they wanted. They would shop. They'd go to Radio City Music Hall. It was what every all-American family wanted to do. They lived to do that. They're not doing that any longer.
No.
Because it's just too dangerous and not affordable. You got migrants staying in the hotels. So the hotels, limited capacity, supply, demand, charging $700 a night. Who in the middle of America can afford that? None of them, unless they take a payday loan and a reverse mortgage, and it's just not worth it.
Forget it.
Just not worth it.
You have to pay it back. So do you think that if you decide to go again for office, that it's possible to make a difference?
Oh, there's no doubt. Look, Things were much worse when Rudy Giuliani was elected mayor. Remember, we had 2,000 murders a year, 10,000 unsolved shootings, but it was only in particular neighborhoods. Now the problem is everywhere. It's not gangs. It's the emotionally disturbed and the homeless. First thing I would do, Joan, is I deal with these people all the time. They need help. We have empty mental health care hospitals with beds. We get the men and women in there. We get them cleaned up, get them good food, let them get away from the grind of living in a subway or a street or a park, and then put them on the medication that they need and observe them. Now, if eventually they stabilize, of course. Do you know many well-known people have gone to what they used to call mental asylums? Woody Guthrie, right? This land is your land, this mine is land, my land. From California to the whatever the rest of the lines are, right? But Woody Guthrie was in Creedmoor. He was in Greystone. He had emotional issues, and he stayed there. And then he would be released, and then he would have to come back. Yeah, a lot of you. Look, we're in an island of Manhattan where everyone will say, you should go to my shrink, my therapist, because I've had some, readjusting problems. There's nothing to be ashamed of that. But we make it so there's like a stigma. Poor people, especially middle-class people, oh, I can't say I'm having emotional issues. And then they struggle. No medication, no therapy, and now no hospitals that can care for them.
I'm talking to Curtis Sliwa. You've got to follow Curtis because you never know where that trail is going to take you. Full of adventure and full of expectation and full of hope, too, for the city that he loves and is so much a part of. Thank you, Curtis.
No, thank you for being a trailblazer, because anyone coming into the business now, whether it's you, Barry Farber, Barry Gray, Bob
remember
Grant,
Barry Gray?
Right. Barry Gray is the best. I mean, remember, a gun on his side.
Right.
And he would embrace the horses, the horse carriage industry. He would say, no, we don't want horses out there. What an enigma Barry Gray was. And he was from Los Angeles.
Right. And you would go in those days, he would broadcast from restaurants, hotels, whatever, sit there late at night.
Yes.
And you would have unbelievable adventures of the mind, mostly.
Right. And then people you would never think would come on the radio.
I know. It was
would
great.
get in line because they wanted Barry Gray to present them to his vast audience, and then maybe the audience might go to their movie or go to their play or their show or buy their clothes. There were few, if any, like Barry Gray. He was a raconteur, bon vivant.
He knew.
But don't mess with him, because he'd take that 38 out and put it right in your face.
Well, you had plenty of experience with guns, too, during your varied career.
That's right. I caught five slugs and survived that. And you know who was the first to call up in the morning? On the morning that I was shot coming to WABC? Barry Gray, who was doing the overnights at WOR.
But how did he know that already?
Because it was on the news. And he called up my producer, Mike Thompson, that he had known for years.
Right.
Mike put him on the air. Barry knew all about me. It wasn't a eulogy. I wasn't dead.
Thank goodness.
Thankfully.
You were tough.
But you talk about one tough hombre, but with a heart.
Yeah.
That was Barry Gray.
And he loved it, too.
Oh, Barry Gray, Barry Farber, Bob Grant at that time. Those were the big three.
They're right. And it took us with them wherever they went. And it was the magic of radio.
And, for you and the rest of them, we don't pay all of you enough tribute because now people jump into the business and it's based on talk TV.
Right.
Not radio. They're not radio people. You know that, Joan. I know that. You know a radio person when you listen to them on the radio. And you can tell somebody who has been on talk TV and they act like everything's scripted, like there are pictures behind. No. You have to describe things in a way that people can imagine it. That's why it's theater of the mind.
Well, and it works when you're Curtis Sliwa. So come listen to Curtis, and you will take a lot of journeys you never thought you'd be capable of. Thank you, Curtis. I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC.